And I think actually we underestimate the psychological impact of cancer.
This is life. This is real life. This isn't just the exceptional moment that might happen to you. Most likely as an SME owner, this will happen within my workforce or to myself.
Returning to work is a lifeline for many people.
As an employer, you just have to be aware that things can sometimes change quite quickly, and if possible, if you can support that, you're more likely to hang on to your staff.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Bupa Small Business Academy, where today we'll be discussing the impact of long-term sickness and return to work on small teams with a particular focus on cancer. I'm Holly Tucker, founder of Not on the High Street and Holly & Co. And today I'm joined by Barbara Wilson, founder and director of Working with Cancer, who provide coaching, training and consultancy services for both employers and employees affected by cancer. Barbara, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'd like to start with your own personal story, if we may, because it was actually your lived experience of cancer that, from a professional perspective, led you to found Working with Cancer. Can you tell us about this journey and what it was that inspired you to actually create your own organisation?
Yes, well, as you say, it was a journey. I was working as a human resources director in the city. At a very well-established investment management company. When I found that I had cancer, I went for a routine mammogram, and they found something. And what I found was that while I was when I was diagnosed and while I was off sick, everything was fine. But the process of getting back to work was a real struggle, and neither I nor my employer at the time handled it very well at all. And in the end, I felt I had to leave. But that experience led me to realise that if I was having problems and I was a senior director, what about all the many other people who were affected by cancer and didn't know what to do or when to do it or how. And then when I retired, sort of retired, in 2012, I thought this is an issue that still needs to be addressed. So I took myself off to an amazing organisation called the School for Social Entrepreneurs, and I learnt how to set up a social enterprise.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Barbara, can you tell me about what you went through when you were going through cancer and how was this for you? And how were you personally dealing with that adjustment to you yourself and looking at yourself?
I hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't recognise who I was. It affects your identity so much. I hated the way I looked. I hated being tired. I hated not being able to cope and running out of energy when I had never had that happen to me before. I was a person who'd pulled all-nighters. I had no time off. I only had 3 weeks off work for my second child. For me, this was a person I didn't like or know. So psychologically, it was very tough. And I think actually we underestimate the psychological impact of cancer a great deal. It's not just a physical thing, it affects your head too. There's a famous clinician called Peter Harvey, who's a clinical psychologist, retired now, who said, a diagnosis of cancer, whoever you are, whatever your personality, it changes your life irrevocably.
I wanted to ask you this. There's often an assumption that people, I suppose, once they hit a certain age or they're looking at mortality straight in the face, that work is the furthest thing from their mind. Would you say that that's true?
I'd say it's absolutely wrong.
Oh.
I think returning to work is a lifeline for many people psychologically, because it's a way of getting back to normal. I mean, actually, you never get back to normal. You move towards a new form of normal. But it gives you some sense of having got through it to an extent. It's also a source of community, of friends and colleagues who you've missed, hopefully you've missed, in a good way. It's a source of income, which is very helpful. It also gives you something to think about apart from yourself, because when you're at home all day, you just focus on the aches and pains and the pills you have to take or whatever it is. Being able to think about something normal that's using your brain is a wonderful escape. So I think returning to work, if you'd ask most people, even in their 60s and 70s, being able to work is a terrific lifeline and support.
Oh, thank you for that. I think it's really interesting from myself being a business owner that we tend to have maternity and paternity, clauses in there, and we talk about all of this. But it is it's tragic that we have this situation that 1 in 2 of us might get cancer. Is that this is actually, as you said, this is life. This is real life. This isn't just the exceptional moment that might happen to you. Most likely, as an SME owner, this will happen within my workforce or to myself,
Yeah.
and it's quite a sobering thought, isn't it, to realize that this is real. This is what's going to be happening.
It's not just for the individual, there's a kind of ripple effect. It will affect their colleagues, it will affect their families. So let's not forget the people in your workforce who will also be carers, who will be also looking after someone with cancer, or their loved one will have cancer, and then facing that uncertainty of what to do. I think the other really important issue to be aware is that side effects of cancer can be very enduring. They are difficult to manage. They take time to manage. They can be managed. But the problem is that very often people will lose confidence. And I've heard employers say things like, look, you're not the person you used to be. And what happens if, let's say somebody comes back to work after some time off, they've done really well for a first few weeks, suddenly they're unwell, they've got fatigue, or some of the things I've mentioned earlier, they need time off, they lose confidence in themselves, their boss loses confidence in themselves. So talking, keeping in touch, understanding what's going on, that really thoughtful, empathetic communication is absolutely critical.
Gosh, you're really highlighting some things I've never thought about, because I think we tend to want, and it leads me into my next question, because as an SME owner myself, I think we want to sort of know what's going to happen. We'd like some dates and some times and some sort of understanding of how long this is going to go on for. And so I'm fully aware as a small business owner that I rely on my people, and the huge long-term impact that the absence might have on my company for whatever reason, and the day to day. With this in mind, what would you say are some of the key things that an SME owner should be doing in order to lessen the impact of long-term sickness and return to work, not just for the individuals involved, but their business, the business as a whole?
I think there are two things employers should do when somebody has a diagnosis of cancer. Provide reassurance that their job is there for them, as long as they're capable eventually of doing it, as it were, but they should provide that reassurance and provide encouragement. Because when somebody comes back to work after a period of sick, they're frightened, they're worried that can I do the job as I would want to? And they may get things wrong. They may have some cognitive problems. It very often arises from chemotherapy. So it's important to put adjustments in place that enable that person to get up to speed gradually. One thing I would say, and most employers aren't really aware of, is that most people need at least 12 weeks for a phased return to work. You don't necessarily have to pay them for that, but give them the time off. Make it okay for them to take that period of leave, because otherwise people put themselves under immense pressure and then compromise their recovery by coming back to work too soon. And the other thing is making comparisons.
Right.
So the number of times I've had managers say to me, well, my mother had breast cancer, I know what it's like. No, they don't. You can have two people with the same breast cancer diagnosis, the same treatment exactly, and they will have very different physiological and psychological reactions to what they've been through.
Gosh.
So you mustn't make comparisons, because it also makes people feel bad.
Yes.
I know someone who worked all through their chemotherapy.
Yes.
Well, I didn't.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Barbara, so much. I found that fascinating. I've learnt so many things, and it's just wonderful to hear a woman like you as in charge of something that you're building that's helping us SME owners get this right. So thank you.
Thank you.
To tell us more about what SME owners can do to better support employees living and working with cancer, here's Richard J. from WorkNest.
Hi, I'm Richard J., an employment law advisor at WorkNest. These are my top 5 tips for SME owners who are supporting an employee with cancer. Number 1, maintain open, compassionate communication. Create a safe space for employees to discuss their needs and concerns. Hold regular check-ins to help understand their capacity and any adjustments required, and review these regularly. Number 2, be flexible with workplace arrangements. Offer options such as flexible hours, remote working, or adjusted duties. This helps to accommodate medical appointments, fluctuating energy levels, or side effects of treatment, or of course their condition. Number 3, provide access to resources and support. Signpost employees to occupational health services, employee assistance programs, and private healthcare if available, as well as any external support. Number 4, respect privacy and confidentiality. Keep details about the employee's diagnosis confidential unless the employee consents to sharing. Number 5, foster an inclusive workplace culture. Train staff on cancer awareness and encourage a culture of understanding and support to minimise stigma and promote team cohesion.
I'm now joined by Dr. Tim Woodman, who is responsible for providing clinical oversight and support to the development and delivery of cancer services within Bupa UK and Ireland. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
Tim, before we tap into your clinical expertise, I know that this topic is something that you have a lot of personal experience in. So I was wondering if we could start by you telling us about your own cancer story and what this experience has taught you in regards to today's conversation about how SMEs can best handle long-term absence and returning to work.
Sure. Okay. So if we go back to 2019, I have 2 basic problems. One is I'm a man and the other is I'm a doctor. And consequently, I ignored all of my symptoms because I'm a man. And I then tried to think of all kinds of different things that could be causing them because I'm a doctor. But my wife eventually nagged me about the number of times I was getting up at night for a pee. So I went to see a urologist, did a PSA blood test, and it was 80, and you don't want them to be anywhere near double figures. So I kind of knew subconsciously I had prostate cancer. It had already spread to the lymph glands in my pelvis, which meant surgery wasn't an option. And my oncologist says, well, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. Literally, that was the phrase he used. So I had chemotherapy for about 4 months, little break for Christmas, and then radiotherapy for 7 weeks, which took me into COVID and into lockdown.
My goodness.
So it was a bit of an experience. And following on from that, everything was reasonably well behaved for about 6 months. Then it came back. So I was then put on different medication to block the hormones, which I've been on now for the last 3.5 years. So effectively, I've been living with the menopause ever since this was diagnosed, because the main treatment is using hormone blockers. And as I say, I think the key thing here is it's very difficult to plan things. You can plan your treatment, you can put your treatment dates in your diary, and then you wake up tomorrow feeling awful.
Mm-hmm.
And any kind of plan goes completely out the window. And employers just need to recognise that. They need to realise that no 2 people with the same cancer will have the same experience. And also, psychologically, we all handle different things in different ways. So people will have different ways of responding to it, whether it's continuing at work, whether it's not, whether it's telling people, whether it's not. And I think the absolute key for an employer, it's 3 things. It's flexibility,
Yep.
it's good communication, and it's empathy. And it's which is realizing that the person with cancer doesn't have all the answers either. Just because you've got it. I mean, I'm in a a slightly awkward, privileged position in that I know a lot about prostate. I know too much about prostate cancer, to be frank,
Yeah.
but most people don't, and they're on a learning experience as well.
We've already discussed the increasing prevalence of cancer amongst people of working age, and I can't believe the statistics. However, there are some more positive trends when it comes to survival rates, which is great to hear. Can you give us a snapshot of the current cancer landscape, so to speak?
Definitely things are changing and things are improving. The incidence of cancer is definitely going up, and there are reasons for that related to lifestyle, but also to early detection and greater awareness. But in terms of survival from cancer, what you have to bear in mind is there are some cancers where the expectation is that you'll still be alive in 10 years. And, 10 years is very much the rule, not the expectation. Things like breast cancer, things like early prostate cancer, things like early bowel cancer. Then there are other cancers where obviously the outlook is still poor. Things like pancreatic cancer and ovarian cancer, but even those are getting better. But on average, people are living longer with cancer. And I think that's the other important thing is they're living with cancer. They're not suffering from cancer, or they shouldn't be. They're not battling cancer, they're living with it.
Yeah, well, that is actually great to hear that there are some positive statistics out there. And what are some of the advancements in treatments that are driving these improved survival rates?
One of the things we're looking at is the genetic tendency to particular illnesses or to particular conditions. So we offer My Genomic Health, which sequences the whole genome, which is all of your genes, and that can identify whether you're at increased risk, not just of cancer, but of things like diabetes, heart disease. And that then means that your people are able to get support from Bupa, health support, health advice, wellbeing support, and start to make lifestyle changes that can improve their general health and reduce the likelihood of getting those conditions. And also we offer a medication check, which is a more refined genomic product, which identifies whether there are any particular treatments that won't work for you. So it looks at common drugs at the moment, painkillers, antibiotics, antidepressants, but the list is constantly expanding, which again, information is power. You can see your doctor. If he offers you a prescription, you can say, well, actually, can I have something different because I've been told that won't work for me?
God, that is amazing to hear. It goes without saying that employee health can have a direct impact on business performance, particularly for small businesses with smaller teams. I run a small business myself, and so this is very interesting. So, with this in mind, what can SME owners do to better support both their employees, but also the wider business when it comes to long term conditions such as cancer?
I think the first thing is if you have an insurance product as an SME that offers any kind of health assessments or well-being support, really, really encourage your people to use it. Because the key to any illness is getting it diagnosed as early as possible. If an illness is diagnosed early, the treatment is usually less severe, the treatment may be shorter, and the actual, the effect on your health will be less. So to look at it from an employer point of view, hopefully you won't be off work as long. You'll be able to come back to work and slot into work much more quickly. But also, I think it's important, again, to recognise that not everybody is the same. But there are options available, particularly if you've got Bupa PMI, for psychological support, because that's the big thing that gets missed. We don't know how people are going to be affected psychologically and emotionally by the diagnosis of any chronic illness. And sometimes it's about getting that support, which again is available through Bupa, whether it's counselling, whether it's psychotherapy, or whether it's actually seeing a psychologist, that enables you to come back to work, to feel psychologically more safe. And again, I still come back to the bit about unpredictability. Just as an employer, you just have to be aware that things can sometimes change quite quickly. And if possible, if you can support that, you're more likely to hang on to your staff. I mean, we hear horror stories from various industries about people who aren't treated well when they're in ill health. But actually, your employees are a very valuable resource, and there is a lot you can do to support them, and there's a lot that Bupa can do to help you support them.
As an SME owner, can you tell me about some of the products and promises that Bupa are able to offer me when a colleague, let's say, is diagnosed with cancer?
We can offer you a lot of cancer cover. Bupa's Cancer Promise means that your employees can access cancer care right through their experience, from diagnosis right through their treatment journey, hopefully until they're clear of cancer, but we provide ongoing support while they're living with cancer afterwards. And as part of that, they can also access our specialist centres. We have these at the moment for breast cancer, colorectal cancer, bowel cancer, and prostate cancer. These mean that you get access very quickly to specialists and tests. And what that means is I prefer to call them reassurance centres, because 95% of the Bupa members who go into these centres are told they don't have cancer, and they're told very quickly. And if they do need treatment, they're given treatment very, very quickly to the best standards.
Wow, that's amazing. Here on the SME Academy, we often talk about the array of free online resources that are available to help people deal with, various health and well-being issues. These include bite-sized videos offering practical advice for line managers. And I believe you've just recorded a new episode on cancer with your own line manager. Tell me about that.
That's right. Yes, that was it. That was interesting. We had a conversation, which is where I found out really about what a manager can offer and the support the Bupa can offer to a manager in terms of getting somebody who's living with cancer or who's living with any chronic disease back into a place where they feel able to engage with work, where they feel safe, and just how the business can actually accommodate them. So that was very informative for me, and obviously I enjoyed providing the information for other people.
Now, Tim, where can I find that bite-sized video?
You can find the bite-sized videos if you look at the Bupa Workplace Academy webpage. And on there, you'll also find content from Jack conversations. You can also find, as an employer, Growth Plus, which gives you access to HR support and resources to help you manage colleagues who may be living with any kind of long-term illness.
Brilliant, thank you. And yourself, you live with cancer now, is that right? And your relationship with work and its importance to you?
I'm still taking treatment. In fact, my PSA is just starting to misbehave. So my oncologist and I are having some interesting conversations at the moment. But my work is very important to me, not least because in my time at Bupa, I've specialised more and more in delivering cancer services and looking at how we can impact people's lives. And I don't want to stop doing that. I've also been very open about my diagnosis within Bupa and wider. And again, I think I have a role to play as an advocate. So within my role at Bupa, it's very important, but I need, again, the support from my employer. And I think it's really important that employers are able to offer that kind of help. And that's certainly enabled me to stay working full time.
Thank you, Tim, so much for sharing your personal experience. It's been fascinating.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. We've discussed what SME owners can do to better support employees living with cancer, but what are the legal obligations when doing so? To tell us more, here's Richard J. from WorkNest again.
Hello again. Let's talk about an SME owner's legal obligation when it comes to supporting an employee with cancer. Firstly, it's important to recognise that cancer is a disability. Under the Equality Act 2010, cancer is automatically classified as a disability. Affected employees therefore have legal protection from discrimination from the point of diagnosis, regardless of the prognosis or the stage. Secondly, you need to make reasonable adjustments. An employer has a duty to make reasonable adjustments to enable an employee to do their job, such as modifying duties, allowing them time off to attend appointments, receive treatment, changing hours, or altering workplace arrangements. Thirdly, you cannot discriminate. Don't treat an employee less favourably because of their cancer diagnosis. Victimise them if they raise concerns or grievances, harass them or discriminate against them for something arising out of their condition. And finally, you need to support employees whose dependents are diagnosed with cancer. The employee is entitled to take reasonable unpaid time off to deal with emergencies or care requirements, and they may take up to 1 week's unpaid carers leave to provide for or arrange care for a dependent, with long-term care needs in each rolling 12-month period.
That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to Barbara and Tim for sharing their own personal stories of living and working with cancer, along with their business and clinical expertise for how SME owners can better support employees doing the same. Take care, and we'll see you next time.